Anybody need a few, or are we ready to roll? Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'm Sheriff Javier Salazar. I know most of our local the Bexar County Sheriff. Next to me is District Attorney Joe Gonzalez. Yes, we're here to provide some details to the best that we know right now regarding a shooting incident that happened last night. So what I'll be talking about is, obviously, I will be giving tentative details on who the victims are. We don't have a definitive identification at this point, but we're fairly certain who these folks are. So we'll be identifying them, and we'll also be identifying the suspect in the case, who is currently in custody and is remanded without bond in Travis County on the part of the incident that happened there in Travis County. Now, while I won't be about what happened in Travis County, because I still don't know full details, of course, we have been in communications with the Austin Police Department. I know our district attorney has been talking to the DA there in Travis County, and I'll let him discuss that. I will be talking about the timeline of events that as we know them here in Bexar County, and I will be asking for the public's help with certain details on that. I will also be prepared to talk about a timeline of events, again, as we know of our dealings with this suspect to this point. And so let me begin by just telling you who the victims are in this case that we're talking about, if we can bring on the stage. Tentatively ID'd, we've got Phyllis James, 55 years of age, and Shane M. James Sr., he's 56 years of age. These are believed to be the parents of the suspect that's currently in custody in Travis County, and his name is Shane M. James Jr. He's 34 years of age. Do we have a picture of him? That's the suspect there. Again, here currently we are working on warrants to file on him. The only current charges that he has are the whatever charges Austin PD has him in custody on. They're in the Travis County Jail, and then plus 3 misdemeanor warrants from here in Bexar County. So here's what we know of the timeline here. The last time we have a report that somebody spoke to one of these victims was at around 10 p.m. the night of the 4th. The sibling of the suspect, one of his siblings, spoke to one of the victims about 10 p.m., give or take, the night prior. The next thing that we have on our timeline as far as that goes is the next morning at 9, one of the neighbors woke up, saw that the father's vehicle was not in the driveway, which he found odd for whatever reason. He assumed that, for some reason, he assumed that the son must have the vehicle and is gone somewhere in the dad's car. So the best that we can put together, possible time of death, is sometime between 10 p.m. that night and 9 a.m. that next morning. Here's where I'll be asking the public for assistance. So while we don't know exactly where during that time frame these victims were killed, we're asking the public that if you live in that neighborhood, please make it a point to check your doorbell camera video. In a bit, we're going to be showing a picture of the suspect's vehicle, what he went to custody. But what we're going to be asking is neighbors to check, did you see this car on a doorbell camera sometime between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m.? Did you hear what you thought may have been gunshots, but you wrote it off at the time, but now we know that there was a double shooting that happened with several gunshots fired from what we're able to determine a large caliber handgun. So we're at 10-335-6000. You can also email us at bcsotips@bear.org. But we are asking for any information that you have. Again, and I'll use this as an opportunity to remind you, if what you feel is just a puzzle piece that's this big, it may be just that one puzzle piece that we need to break this case wide open for us. So please, call us no matter how insignificant you feel your information might be. Please, it's important that you call us. Again, 210-335-6000 or bcsotips@bear.org. Likewise, if you live between here and car. Is that the exact color, Johnny, or is that a different? Okay, so that's the exact color of the suspect's car. We are asking, again, anybody that may have possibly run into this suspect in this car at a gas station between here and Austin. Again, we're trying to determine a timeline, and so we're asking anybody that may have seen that vehicle to please give us a call, 210-335-6000 or bcsotips@bear.org. So with regard to the shooting itself, the first time we became aware in Austin, still don't know the number of victims that were actually shot in Austin. I know there was some civilians that died as a result of the shooting, and I know that there were some law enforcement officers that were wounded. I believe they have all survived their injuries. But that's really the extent of what I know about what occurred in Austin. I'm sure my homicide folks know more, but that's what I know at this point. They called us at about 7:45 and said they had this suspect in custody in Austin, and could we please check a location here in Bexar County that is associated with him, his residence. We had deputies go there to the residence, and they knocked on the door. They saw water coming out from under the door, and which obviously struck them as strange. They then got clearance from their supervisor to force entry to the residence under exigent circumstances, believing somebody may be injured inside the home. And as it turns out, that's exactly the case. I was actually monitoring the radio at the time that they made entry to the home. You could hear them going through the home saying, we're clearing this bedroom, we're clearing this room now. At a certain point in there, you hear the deputies say, we have a crime scene, or words to that effect. So it was obvious at that point they found blood and or the victim's deceased in a small room located in the house itself. Once they realized that what we were dealing with was most likely a double homicide, they then notified CID, and we came to the location and began processing the scene. They spent the better part of the night and early into this morning processing that scene. They've gathered all the evidence that they could. We cleared the scene at about 5 o'clock this morning, thereabouts, maybe between 4 and 5 o'clock this morning. Turned the house back over to the next of kin, and came back and started processing the scene. Again, our intention at this point is to eventually, and I'm talking about here in the next day, maybe the next day or two, charge this suspect here in Bexar County with either murder or capital murder, based upon what the facts of the case as we know them at that time, what that can support. Obviously, I would hope for the higher charge, but do we have enough elements of the offense met that will support capital murder? So that determination will be made very sooner rather than later, and we will be charging him. Now, I can tell you, at this point, we are hopeful. Well, I can tell you that the DAs have been working, and I'll let Mr. Gonzalez address that more in depth, but I can tell you that the DAs have been working behind the scenes to where we're certain that this suspect is not going to get out of jail. The reason, obviously, that allows us to take our time is then we can put together the best case possible before we go to the magistrate and say, hey, we want an arrest warrant, and here's what we're looking for. It allows my investigators time to meticulously go through all the evidence and then present the best case they possibly can to the magistrate trying to get an arrest warrant. And so that's what we know to this point. What I can tell you about the timeline of events as we know them, our dealings with this suspect. January 6th of 2022, he was arrested there in the 6000 block of Port Royal for 3 misdemeanor charges of assault. We believe that the victims of those assaults at that time were the 2 decedents, the 2 victims that were deceased, and then a sibling. He was arrested on that day, on January 6, 2022, by deputies from the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. He was booked into the jail on January 7th. On January 14th, a victim's advocate from the Sheriff's Office, in keeping in protocol with what we do with domestic violence cases, reached out to the family. The family stated that James does not belong in jail. He has mental health issues. At some point during that time, I believe around January 27th of 2022, the conditions of his bond were altered. I'm not exactly sure why, but I can speculate a bit if you'll allow me to detail what I know of those bond conditions. Initially, when he was booked on January 7th, he was booked with the bond. He had the bond conditions on his charge of no contact whatsoever with the victims, January 7th. On January 27th, the bond changed to no threatening, harmful contact with the victims in the case. Again, I'm speculating, but I believe that may have been done at the request of the family members that said, hey, he's got nowhere else to go but home. We can't deal with those bond conditions. We need them relaxed a bit. So they were relaxed a bit January 27th to no harmful contact with the victims. March 7th, he was released from jail. On March 8th, we now know that he cut off his ankle monitor. And those 3 charges then became warrants for his arrest. At that point in time, it's interesting to note, it was not actually a criminal offense to cut off an ankle monitor during that time. At that time, it became a criminal offense this past September to cut off your ankle monitor. So while it was a violation of your probation or your bond to cut off an ankle monitor back then, it was not actually a standalone crime. Now it is actually a standalone crime, and I believe it's a felony offense to do so. So, and our processes have changed since then to where now if somebody cuts off an ankle monitor, the sheriff's office and or the handling agency of whatever the offense is get an email from pretrial saying this suspect on your case just cut off an ankle monitor, and then we can proceed with filing the appropriate criminal felony charges and going and picking him up. Regardless, back in March of 2022, unfortunately that statute did not exist. On March 9th, those warrants were reissued for arrest due to violation of the bond. This past August, our deputies received a call to that location for a mental health episode. When deputies arrived, they realized that the suspect had 3 outstanding warrants, misdemeanor warrants for his arrest. And when they met the complainant at that time, Shane Sr. in the front yard, they advised him at that time, he's telling the story of what's going on with his son. To paraphrase what I remember of the case, he was naked, he was just acting out, had a mental health episode, and he was upstairs in his bedroom. Deputies advised the dad at that time that he had 3 warrants for his arrest, and the dad said words to the effect of, oh, for that last thing? Yes. And then he says, man, he was there for a long time, or again, words to that effect, and so the deputies indicated, well, he's going to have to come with us. If we can get him, he's going to have to come with us. And so then all of them went upstairs. The deputies then went to the bedroom. They knocked. The door was locked. They were not able to get in. Being that there were misdemeanor warrants, our authority to force domicile is somewhat limited because it's a misdemeanor warrant at that time. So the deputies were not able to force the door in, but the dad did, and he did, and he's seen on body camera video putting his shoulder into the door and opening it by force, but the door only opened so much. So there was a bed there, and then the deputies, once they looked in, and you can see what they see by the body cam, the suspect is laying on the bed and he's clearly naked. And then at a certain point, the deputies start speaking to him through the crack in the door, which is about 4 inches. And the suspect then goes behind the door. The deputies are talking to him through the door, asking him to come out. They're trying to bring him down, trying to de-escalate. The suspect is upset during that time. And the deputies, you can tell that they know what they're doing with regard to de-escalation. They're talking to him in a calm tone. He is being insulting to them, but not threatening. In other words, he's hurling racial slurs at them and then questioning their sexual orientation, I guess. He's using terms to question their sexual orientation. The deputies are unfazed. They're professionals. They're doing what they need to do. But again, they're not able to get into the room itself or physically get hands on the suspect. They're not able to talk him out of the room. At a certain point, they all go back downstairs and start talking to the dad again and tell the dad that, we're going to leave him here, but we're not going to be gone far. We're going to be up the street. If you will please call us back if and when he comes out of that bedroom, and we'll come right back and we'll arrest him. By all appearances, it doesn't appear like that call ever came in. The dad indicated that yes, he would, and then by all indications, we never got another call. We did not get another call back to this residence until such time as we got the call last night at about 7:45 p.m. And so that's the gist of this case as I understand it to this point. Let me just do a quicker condensed version of that in Spanish, and then I'll open it up to whatever questions you might have for me or for the district attorney. Anoche, como ustedes saben, nosotros fuimos a una casa en el este del condado por un reporte, para checar unas personas, unos residentes de la casa. Se aparenta que el Departamento de Policías de Austin, ellos arrestaron a un sospechoso por varios tiroteos que ocurrieron en la ciudad de Austin anoche. A nosotros nos llamaron aproximadamente a las 7:45 de la noche pidiéndonos que nosotros checáramos la casa donde vivía el sospechoso. Cuando nosotros llegamos, encontramos 2 víctimas, se supone, de homicidios. Se aparenta que parece que el sospechoso valió las dos víctimas la noche anterior o la mañana, en la mañana ayer, entre las horas de las 10 de la mañana y 9 de la mañana, 10 de la noche y 9 de la mañana. Algo pasó durante ese tiempo donde nosotros pensamos que el sospechoso mató a las víctimas y él huyó a Austin, donde empezó a hacer lo que hizo allá en Austin. Nosotros sabemos que este sospechoso, sabemos quién es. Nosotros ahorita, el intento de nosotros es aplicar por dos órdenes de arresto para el sospechoso tocante lo que pasó aquí en el condado de Bexar. Se sabe que él todavía está en la cárcel en el condado de Travis y no se va a salir. Entonces eso nos deja a nosotros trabajar en el caso y luego ya vamos a aplicar con el juez por una orden de arresto y ojalá le ponemos más cargos ya cuando se llegue a ese punto. Este sospechoso ya sabemos que nosotros lo hemos arrestado antes por casos menores de violencia doméstica, 3 casos. Y se aparenta que él estaba en la cárcel por un tiempo, pero ya se salió de la cárcel. Él tenía una pulsera puesta, se la cortó hace más que un año. Y hace unos cuantos meses nuestros oficiales fueron a la casa de él por una llamada que él estaba en crisis mental. En ese día no lograron arrestarlo, sino que dejaron aviso con la familia que por favor nos hablaran ya cuando podíamos arrestarlo. Esa llamada nunca vino y ya sabemos que la próxima vez que fuimos a la casa de él fue anoche cuando nos encontramos con las víctimas. Any questions? Yes, sir.
With all the contacts that you had with James, could you have done more to keep him off the street?
Well, Jay, it's always possible that we could have done more. And absolutely, while we wish that the opportunity had presented itself on that day to put hands on him, there is no doubt in my mind the deputies would have absolutely, had they been able to safely put hands on him. But I can also see, and again, I'm speculating here based upon what I know of the training my deputies go through and what I saw them speaking to them as the professionals that they are, it appears they were making every effort to avoid a violent confrontation with what they could tell was an unarmed man in the nude. That is a no-win situation for them should they be accused of inciting a violent confrontation with this man. I think they made the intent to try to de-escalate. When that failed, they left the location, again, in hopes of coming back. But for that time, it appears to me they wanted to avoid a violent confrontation. So absolutely, I wish we could have been able to get him in custody. Now, with that being said, it's assuming a lot, saying had they just arrested him that day, this wouldn't have happened. There are misdemeanor charges. To hear the DA, the assistant DA that I spoke to say it, chances are he would have already served his time and been out by this time anyway, even had we put him in custody in August. Regardless, I wish there was more that the system could do for suspects like this man. It appears, by all accounts, he's suffered with mental illness for some years. From what the family members are telling us, he's had mental health issues for some years. Based upon some of the history that we've seen, he was in the military for some time, was discharged due to some sort of a domestic violence incident in the military. Again, I think that's in no small part due to his mental illness. So absolutely, I wish there's more the system would do for a person.
Este es otro caso, este es otro caso, en español, por favor. Este es un caso donde otra vez, a lo mejor, tú mismo o el fiscal van a ser atacados o señalados diciendo, aquí tenemos otro caso donde dejan salir a alguien en libertad condicional y miren la tragedia que pasa. ¿Qué respondes? Y a lo mejor tal vez el fiscal que puede responder a eso.
Mira, en cada caso que nosotros hacemos nuestro trabajo, uno nos puede atacar. Si no queremos hacer eso, entonces ¿para qué hacer este trabajo? Con eso, mi trabajo es proteger nuestra comunidad. Es lo que estos oficiales intentaron hacer. La persona que se debería echar la culpa en este caso es el sospechoso Aunque tenía él problemas mentales, también no sabemos cómo se juntó él con una arma. Nosotros no le pusimos esa arma en las manos, sino que nosotros ahorita quisiéramos averiguar quién le dio acceso a las armas, porque su condición de él era que no debería tener armas, pero eso pasó. También sabemos que el hombre desafortunadamente no estaba tomando sus medicinas y que estaba tomando en los días anteriores de esto, que estaba tomando. También eso fue alguna condición. Este hombre, aunque tiene problemas físicas o mentales, es adulto. Él también sabe lo que debería estar haciendo y no estar haciendo. Entonces la culpa es de él. A nosotros nos toca poder averiguar cómo se debería hacer las cosas y cómo aprender de esta situación para prevenir otras tragedias en el futuro. Y es lo que estamos haciendo ahorita.
Tia Gonzalez, I know it was last year, but James was bonded out by Texas Organizing Project, which has worked with the county to reduce the population at the jail. They've also contributed to your election campaign and to the sheriff's. And they bonded them out on those assault charges after bond was reduced. Do either of you regret that partnership with Texas Organizing Project?
Well, look, Texas Organizing Project was one group that supported me during my campaign, but my office nor I have anything to do with their activities in deciding who to bond out. But I will tell you that the decision that they made to bond these individuals out was based on their review of the case. We're talking about someone that was charged with a Class A misdemeanor assault, where the allegation is a pushing and a scratching. There was no criminal history of this individual, so as bonds go and as risk goes, this was a low risk to that organization and I suppose to the judge in determining where the bond. And I will repeat that the district attorney's office does not set bonds. We recommend bonds. It's up to the magistrate judge to set a bond. But I would say that based on the information that the magistrate judge had at the time, and then the county court judge, that the bonds at that moment were appropriate. And so we're talking about 3 $100 bonds. So when you talk about any organization, whether it's TOP or a commercial bondsman or an individual, again, these were low bonds.
But they were reduced.
Understand, but they were reduced by the judge, and so he reduced it from $500 to $100, and so those bonds were then the bonds that the organization bonded the defendant out with. But if the question is whether or not that organization should have done that, again, that's a question you're going to have to ask them, because I didn't have anything to do with that. That's something you'd have to address with them.
Do either of you plan to pay that money back or donate that amount to charity, things that politicians have done in the past, where organizations that have helped fund them or supported them have then been involved in a situation like this?
Well, we're getting off topic here, but I will tell you this, Dylan. Their TOP has never given me 1 cent. They provided a service that they had to put a dollar amount on. Well, let me finish. Yeah, if I could finish, please.
Yeah, I mean,
and so there's no money amount that they donated to me, and so and I'm going to go forward with my office and do the right thing, because public safety is our #1 concern, and so we're going to continue to do what we're doing now, which is focus on public safety.
With multiple jurisdictions, can you just give me a sense about what the process will be? Who will be? I mean, will it be charged first in Austin or Bexar County? And give me a sense.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, it's unfortunate that we have to be here at this press conference. We hope to never have to do this, but what is positive about this thing is that these agencies have come together as soon as we have. I thank the sheriff for inviting me to be part of this, because we usually don't get involved until a case is investigated and filed in our office. But I will tell you that they're already agencies that are being proactive. I spoke this morning with the district attorney in Travis County. I spoke to the U.S. Attorney's office. I spoke to the actual U.S. attorney and has offered his resources and his help. So that's a positive thing that we're going to be working together. I will tell you that this man is in the custody of Travis County. I don't expect that he will be released to us to prosecute this case when it's filed until they resolve their case. But I will tell you that we're already taking steps to ensure that this man doesn't get out in the public. Today we filed motions to remand without bond on these misdemeanor cases, and the judge granted that. So when he comes to Bexar County, he's not stepping foot outside the jail door. But again, we have to wait patiently until Travis County finishes their prosecution on this case.
Yo, en español me puedes decir yo, por favor, ¿qué es lo que va a pasar ahora con este hombre? Dijiste que le van a quitar la libertad, aunque pague dinero. ¿Qué es lo que va a pasar?
Hemos pedido al juez que detengan a esta persona sin una fianza y el juez nos dio esa petición, pero vamos a tener que esperar hasta que se resuelva este caso en el otro condado en Austin antes que nosotros podamos proceder en contra de este caso. Y ojalá que cuando presenten el caso va a ser de asesinato capital. Y vamos a hacer todo posible para proceder esta persona cuando ya lo dejen ir desde Austin.
¿Buscar la pena de muerte?
Todavía es temprano para hacer esa decisión, pero esa es una de las opciones, pero vamos a tener que esperar para eso. I'll turn it over to the sheriff.
Let me answer your question, Jay. I don't regret any support from anybody in my campaign. They didn't do anything wrong in supporting me. Dylan, to answer your question, no, there's nothing for me to refund. Again, they didn't do anything wrong in helping this gentleman exercise his right to bond. So no, there won't be anything refunded, and I don't regret anybody supporting me.
Can you tell us about the weapon and just how he got it? Was it legally purchased or anything background on that?
So we're trying to find out where that weapon came from. We're assuming it came from within the house, but beyond that, I don't know much about the weapon that he was caught with. What I can tell you at this point is that I believe the shell casings we found in the home do match at least some of the shell casings found in Austin, but beyond that, I don't know if they match the gun that he was caught with, or how many guns he was caught with. I don't have those details.
Gonzalez, is there a reason that the misdemeanor cases are not actively available online? Because we had to call your office to confirm earlier that there were investigations against him. And I went up online at reason of noon this afternoon. They were there.
Well, if you're talking about the 3 misdemeanor cases filed in Bexar County, they should be available because they're public. They're a matter of public record.
The public records are there, the hard copy, but online there is no record of his system.
Okay, well, that's a function of the county clerk and the county court system. I'll look into that to find out what they can do to make the informations available. But I will tell you that we have copies of, and we can provide you hard copies because, as far as I'm concerned, they're a matter of public record. And while you mention that, let me make sure everybody understands that the allegations in Bexar County that we're talking about are of having pushed or scratched the victims that have already been identified, which are his parents and a sibling. And basically the allegation is that the defendant assaulted these 3 individuals on the same date out of the same transaction by pushing the complainant and scratching. So as these kind of offenses go, obviously we're not talking about an aggravated offense. We're not talking about any weapons used. We're not talking about serious bodily injury, but it is a crime. It's a crime that we're going to hold him accountable for. It's a crime that we intend to prosecute in due time. But again, he's got bigger problems now, and that is the potential for a capital murder charge.
But isn't there a rehabilitation process to this if he had been rearrested after cutting off his ankle monitor and had gone to court for this and been given maybe mental health treatment or some sort of rehabilitative help and maybe stop something like this from taking place? Or are you of the belief that he was going to do something like this regardless?
Well, sure, there's always a potential, and we hope that people can be rehabilitated, but you got to get to court in order to accept rehabilitation. You have to be able or be willing to resolve this case. The reality is he cut off his monitor, as you've heard the sheriff say, and for almost 2 years, that is over for a year and a half, he was a fugitive from justice. He was on the lam, as they say, and unless we have him back in custody or we have him coming into the court, we can't resolve the case. And that's where we were with these cases. For over a year and a half, we couldn't get any resolution while he was in the wind. So we do hope that these individuals that are charged with crimes will come to court, will accept responsibility so that they can move on. Again, now we're dealing with the bigger problem, but we will handle everything that we have when it is filed in due time.
And just so we're clear, prior to the January 6th, he had no history of violence.
That's correct. There was no indication, and again, you talk about, the factors that a judge uses to determine where to set a bond. There was no crystal ball. There was no indication. Other than, we know that there was a mental health history here. We know that there were cases where the police had to engage what we're calling emergency detention. So that was a red flag. But again, there was nothing to indicate that this individual was going to commit a murder, and certainly not one of this seriousness where you have multiple victims and you have a capital murder that we have today.
So we know now that there was a domestic violence incident of some sort in the military, but we didn't know that on January 6th. I don't know that we would have had access to that. We know that now, but again, I don't know to what extent. I just know that had something to do with why he left the military.
Cheque con lo que pasó, y ahora sabiendo lo que sabemos, ¿vas o tus oficiales van a proceder de una manera tal vez diferente cuando vean casos muy parecidos a este?
Bueno, nuestros oficiales tienen un trabajo bien difícil. Ellos tienen que tratar de averiguar si una persona sigue siendo un peligro a la comunidad, pero también tienen que hacer todo lo posible para evitar encuentros físicos con alguien cuando no es necesario, absolutamente necesario. Es lo que parece que hicieron en esta vez. Desafortunadamente ellos no podían ver en el futuro qué iba a pasar con este sospechoso, aunque él ni sabía lo que iba a hacer en el futuro. Para mí los oficiales hicieron el trabajo que pudieron hacer ese día con la información que ellos tenían. Desafortunadamente ya ahorita sabemos que ocurrió una tragedia, pero no se sabe si alguien había podido evitar esa tragedia. Me gustaría que sí.
Does the suspect have a mental health diagnosis?
I'm sorry?
Does the suspect have a mental health diagnosis?
That I don't know that I can go into. That's a HIPAA type question. But what I can tell you is there is definitely a mental health aspect to this. There have been other episodes. Sorry, go ahead.
Whenever y'all were aware that this, after there was a warrant and they were never contacted again by the family, did deputies ever try to go back to the house? What's the steps that they take when they know there's an active warrant there and they know where he lives?
Well, when there's, absolutely they're able to. But does the average patrol deputy who's running literally from call to call to call to call to call have the time, or do you all want them to camp out outside of a home for misdemeanor warrants that even if we get eyes on the guy, let's say we saw him through a window and we know he's in there, on a misdemeanor warrant, we don't have the authority to go kick in a door. If there were a felony warrant, absolutely, they've got the ability to go in and go after this person. But in this instance, these were misdemeanor warrants, and we have very limited authorities on what we can do with those, unfortunately.
Sheriff, you mentioned a little bit earlier that when he was in the military, there's belief that part of the reason that he was no longer with the Army is because of a domestic violence incident that happened while he was with the military. Mm-hmm. Was that information provided to y'all by the U.S. Army, or did you just now find that out as a result of this?
No, we found that out today. And again, we don't have full access to it. We've got some military paperwork with some entries, and somewhere in there is the information that shows that it was a domestic incident of some sort that led to his discharge, but I don't know details, and we just found that out today.
Is there the need for that communication, though? Because if there is a reason for him to have potentially been dishonorably discharged for a domestic violence situation.
Well, absolutely. Anytime that you're talking about more information, absolutely, more information is always better. Is it feasible from the military? I don't know. That'd be a question for them. Is there a mechanism for us to take in this information in Military City, USA, where we just have tens of thousands of military veterans? Is it feasible for us to take in that information and then store it somewhere on the off chance that maybe somebody will commit? I know that's not what you're saying. Absolutely. More information is always better, but I don't know that it would have prevented anything in this instance.
The timeline, your last contact was August of this year.
Yes.
Him at the home.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, when deputies do these
I'm sorry, he had a follow-up question for
I
me.
was going to say, so if that information had been provided to you all by the U.S. Army before today,
Mm-hmm.
would that have changed, and maybe Tia Gonzalez, this is a question for you, would that have changed it from a misdemeanor to something else, knowing there had already been a history?
I don't think it would have been, because it looks like it was in the 2012 timeframe, 2004 timeframe. This was some time ago, so I don't know that it would have contributed in any way to what happened in 2022 or otherwise. Sorry.
My information was that this incident occurred outside Bexar County, so we wouldn't have been able to use that to enhance this to more serious offense.
Sure, so when deputies do the type of checks, when you said they were trying to de-escalate the situation, do they check for other weapons in the house, or were there other weapons or firearms in the house when you guys
Well,
were there last night?
I think typically we ask for weapons. Since the homeowner was not suspected of any wrongdoing, I don't know that we would have gone searching or anything, absent consent. But that's a typical question that we ask: are there any weapons in the home? And on the key card, on the details, my understanding is we were told no weapons were seen. So there was no reason for them to believe there was weapons involved. Now, this is Texas. Just about every house has at least a gun in it, so we always assume that there is one. But until we're told he had it, he's holding it, he brandished it, he threatened somebody, we just assume that it's not in play at that moment. And clearly with him, again, I believe they could clearly see he was laying down, he was nude. I don't think they perceived an immediate threat, but they also, I don't think, wanted to initiate a violent confrontation when we may not have had the strongest authority to even burst into that room. That would have gotten them into even more problems at that point.
Is there any indication why he went to Austin and encountered any of the people that he killed there?
So there is not, Joey. What my understanding is that a sibling lives in Austin, in the Austin area, but I don't know. Again, it'd be speculation for me to say he was going there for her. We don't know. Austin may have a better understanding of what he was doing there. I don't know that there was any rhyme or reason to how he selected his victims at all. Nothing that we've been made aware of. And my understanding was that last night he clammed up. He started an interview with them and then he clammed up. We had an investigator on the way to liaison with Austin, and then when he heard that the guy self-terminated the interview, he turned around and came back home. He figured he could do more help here. At a certain point, we may want to head out there and talk to him if he'll talk to us. But no, I don't know that there's any motive established to why he was going there.
Going back to the car, so is the car currently in somebody's custody? Was it found with him? Where is it right now?
Yes, the car is in custody in Austin. It's impounded in Austin.
Sheriff, en este momento, ya han pasado muchas horas, ustedes han estado en el barrio desde anoche, estuvimos ahí. Los vecinos escucharon algo, ¿se dieron cuenta de algo hasta donde sabes tú?
No, pues nosotros ahorita es lo que estamos pidiendo al público, que si vecinos escucharon algo como balazos, si vieron algo, si escucharon un carro que iba a muy alta velocidad huyendo de la escena, nosotros quisiéramos que nos hablen a 210-335-6000 o que nos manden email bcsotips@bear.org.
So, entonces, desde ayer que tus agentes han estado ahí con los vecinos, nada.
No, nosotros estamos ahorita tocando en las puertas, preguntando si alguien dio algo, si tienen video, es lo que estamos haciendo ahorita, pero es posible también que nosotros tocamos una puerta, nadie estaba en el trabajo, pero ya que van llegando a la casa y viendo las noticias, ojalá nos ven eso y nos hablen si tienen algo de información para ayudarnos.
Sheriff, anoche usted dijo que todo aparentaba que los había matado y había movido los cuerpos a otro cuarto. ¿Sabe más de eso? ¿Los quería tal vez esconder?
No, es lo que estamos hablando. Mira, con una persona que está en crisis mental, hay gran chance que nosotros nunca vamos a averiguar qué estaba pensando él en aquellos momentos. No se sabe. Si él habla con nosotros, obviamente le vamos a preguntar eso, pero también hay gran chance que nosotros nunca vamos a darnos cuenta qué es lo que pasó. Nosotros, siguiendo la evidencia que nosotros tenemos, parece que los valió en un cuarto y los llevó al otro cuarto, pero no se sabe cómo o por qué, y ojalá nos vayamos a dar cuenta en algún día.
You're asking the public's help for a little bit of a missing piece. What about the timeline don't you have so that the public can help?
So the last time anybody spoke to one of the victims was 10 p.m., and then the first time somebody said they didn't see a car that should have been in the driveways was 9 a.m. So sometime between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m., we believe, is when the homicides occurred. Could have happened at 10:01 and then he took off to Austin. Could have happened at 8:59 and then he took off to Austin, because that would have allowed him plenty of time to get there and start shooting at people at around 10:30 or so. So sometime between 10 p.m. 9 a.m. is the best we can narrow it down. And maybe we'll get it narrowed down if somebody can call us and say, hey, I heard something at 3 in the morning. We know that it was at least several gunshots from a large caliber handgun. So somebody may have heard something and woke up half asleep, said, oh, it's just firecrackers, it's just those crazy kids next door or whatever, and then just wrote it off and didn't call. Again, we're asking you to try to remember, and if you heard something suspicious, call us.
Where were the victims hit, do you know?
They were hit in the upper body, is what I'll say at this point. Okay.
And do you know who owned the gun?
No, we have not yet been able to determine that. Thank you so much.